How did Cassie's words shock everyone in the courtroom? They put Diddy on the edge of a life sentence and made his daughter feel sick with fear. The federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs is like a show that is happening right now. There were a lot of shocking discoveries about one important person. Cassie Ventura, who used to be Diddy's girlfriend and is now one of his harshest critics, was the main witness for the prosecution. Was she all set? She was so well prepared and sure of herself that she was ready to tell a story that would make everyone in the room feel sick. Cassie did more than just testify. She took the court into the depths of the hell she went through as Diddy's girlfriend. This wasn't just about the horrible violence seen on that 2016 hotel video that everyone already knew about. Instead, she peeled back layers of something much worse. Games and parties that are so twisted and evil that they're hard to imagine. The names came next. The names of the people who were reportedly forced, drugged, and filmed are coming out like a dam breaking. The courtroom held its breath as each new detail hit harder than the last. Some people used to call the man who built Bad Boy Records the invincible king of hip-hop. He was sitting just a few feet away. There was no middle ground for Sean Diddy Combs in that. His once powerful charisma fell apart in fear as Cassie's evidence cut through his reputation. Think about it. The business mogul who walked in with all the confidence of a giant. Now frozen, his eyes showed that he was starting to feel scared. These claims are backed up by proof. Cassie held on to texts and tapes. He might be locked up for life if they did more. His kingdom turned into ash. Listen to Cassie if you thought this controversy was just an act to get attention. What were they forced to do? Who gave the drugs to them? Who made those sick videos? Does she have the important proof to lock up this music superstar? Or is there a secret even bigger that needs to be revealed? This trial could be the end of a big show business. And this is everything Cassie told us, not cut or edited. This video shows everything live from New York's Southern District Court. This morning, Manhattan woke up to a stressed electric air. It was very windy on the steps of the Southern District Courthouse, where a large group of people were waiting with bated breath. As reporters fought for space, their cameras flashed like a storm about to break. Protesters for women's rights waved big red signs that said "Justice for Cassie." A small but loud group of Diddy fans chanted, "They're slandering our king." A gust of wind caused one banner to fall to the ground, showing a handwritten message that said, "The truth will prevail." The main act then came on. Diddy walked into the courtroom with an air of almost cocky confidence. He was surrounded by top lawyers who were paid millions to protect a kingdom that was about to fall apart. He moved like he couldn't be touched, but that cockiness was bound to fall apart. Cassie Ventura, whose real name is Cassandra Ventura, was on the witness stand across the room. She was 8.5 months pregnant and had her hand on the bottom of a simple brown dress. When she wasn't wearing a lot of makeup, her eyes showed a strong determination. Fitness trainer Alex Fine sat on the right in the rows behind her husband. His eyes were like a quiet beacon cutting through the darkness, giving her confidence that she couldn't put into words. This wasn't like any other hearing. At this point, a country had to face its fate. For more than 10 years, Diddy and Cassie's friendship was very strong. But in 2018, it slowly died down. But the truths that had been hidden for years were about to be brought to light in a very public way. Diddy was sued by Cassie more than a year ago, saying that she was abused, controlled, and sexually exploited by him. The hip-hop mogul strongly rejected the claims. The civil case was over in just 24 hours, which was so fast that everyone in the business looked at it funny. That was not the end of the story, though. These claims set off a chain of events that led to a federal investigation. From a quiet civil claim to the biggest scandal in American entertainment in years, this case blew up. Cassie isn't here to sue today. She is here to swear under oath in public. She's doing great. She had a good night's sleep. Yes, she is ready for cross-examination, and we are very sure that she will do great. Thanks, okay, thanks. What did really happen when those doors were shut? How could a relationship turn into the hellish situation Cassie talks about? The question that keeps coming back to mind is how a woman could put up with such horrible things for 10 years. It's not just about Cassie and Diddy. That is a story about power, control, murder, and how an entire society stays quiet while these things happen. A group of people who used to worship the flash and glam, didn't see the darkness that was hiding below. Cassie gave up her privacy, her safety, and even the peace of her last trimester to be pregnant with someone else's child. All of this so she could stand in the middle of a media storm and remember the worst times of her life. Learn more about why this isn't just a trial by going into the shocking facts of Cassie's second day of testimony. It reveals the monster that was once thought to be the famous singer Diddy outside of court at 10:12 a.m. The name Cassie Ventura, whose real name is Cassandra Ventura, rang out. Two witnesses had the stand before her, putting together the first somber pieces of a puzzle that would amaze everyone. Cassie, who was almost 9 months pregnant, stood up as a witness. Her body was shaking, but her eyes were fiercely focused, like a fighter ready to face the ghosts of her past. The courtroom's air was trained to be a boring, not a breath or a random sound. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting for her to reveal the truth. Everyone was paying close attention to this movie and leaning in. In that courtroom, you can hardly hear a thing. At first, the jurors asked Cassie soft questions as if to calm her down before getting into the heartbreaking facts. How old are you? 38. What do you do? A musician and performer. How long did you spend with Sean? 10 years. 10 years. 10 years of being stuck in a living hell. Cassie, who was 19 at the time and had big goals, signed with Diddy's Bad Boy Records empire in 2006. Step would take her into the hands of a monster. She had no idea. I didn't feel love for Diddy. It was like an unseen chain was squeezing her soul and lowering her status. Cassie tore through the glittering facade of the music world to reveal a terrible truth in a speech that chilled the courtroom. To most people, Diddy was the music mogul and the brains behind Bad Boy Records. He made artists famous and spread his power into fashion and media. Cassie showed that he was a monster behind closed doors, violent, controlling, and completely cruel. The woman said that Sean Combs told her what to wear, how to act around the person she was having sex with, and even what lights to use in the room. Diddy had complete control over Cassie's life and told her what to do at all times. The white French style on her nails, the way she cut her hair, and even the way she talked to people, especially in the bedroom. She didn't want to go to the freak-offs or the sordid parties she had to go to. Diddy got sick pleasure from seeing her with other guys. She didn't want it. She did it because she was too young, too naive, and desperate to please the powerful man who had direct control over her future. I'll show you a movie. Where is this? L.A.'s Intercontinental Hotel. It happened after a freak-off. What does that mean, getting hired and setting it up? How did you feel when he first asked for it? Not sure. Tense up. I wished he was pleased. Did you say yes to one when he first asked? Yes. After that, there were more. I didn't want to do it very often. Cassie was pulled into the dark world of freak-offs, depraved marathons that last 36 to 96 hours, sometimes 4 days straight, just 6 months after she met Diddy. These weren't one-time treats. They happened once a week in fancy hotels like the Mandarin Oriental, the Intercontinental, or the Trump Hotel under fake names like Jackie Starr or Frank Black to hide their true identities. Combs suggested she hire a private nurse to have sex with him while he watched. It made my stomach hurt. Venter said, I liked him a lot and wanted to make him happy, but I was also scared and confused. Cassie told the judge that hotel rooms were so dirty with blood, urine, and baby oil that the prosecutor had to stop asking her. She had to use Craigslist or Backpage to find escorts, men like Clayton Howard or the Punisher, and act with them in crazy situations that Diddy wrote. He was in charge of everything, including the flickering of the Glade candles, the exact temperature of the room, Johnson's baby oil for a shine, and Astroglide lube. I had to call if we ran out, go to the front desk and give them a tip. She said, her voice flat, as if she were reliving a painful dream. Cassie told how Diddy forced her to take drugs like Molly, GHB, Special K, ecstasy, and mushrooms to stay awake during those long days. She said, I threw up from ecstasy and MDA. I hated GHB. It made my heart race. Diddy would sometimes watch her on FaceTime, treating her like a toy in his weird game. I felt disgusted. Too much in my mouth. I was choking. Once, candle wax was poured on her skin. I didn't want it. She insisted, her hands cradling her pregnant belly as if to protect her unborn child from the worst parts of her past. One night in Las Vegas in 2010, Cassie was high on ecstasy and lying on the hotel floor. Diddy and an escort stood over her and peed on her face. I was gaga. She sobbed so hard that my voice broke. I felt dirty and worthless, but if I said no, he would beat me. The courtroom was dead silent. Even seasoned reporters were frozen by the horrifying truth. Cassie said she used to look forward to the freak-offs, not because she liked them, but because they gave her the only time she had to be alone with Diddy. I loved him, she choked out. I thought it would make him happy. Her admission showed how someone took advantage of her while she was young and trusting. You told him you didn't want to do it, so why did you feel like you couldn't say no? I didn't want to make him mad or upset after he told me this about himself. Fear became her constant companion. Diddy made the freak-off videos and used them as a blackmail tool to keep Cassie in chains. An email from 2010 that was shown in court showed her pleading with Diddy to stop, but his reaction was a scary threat. He'd put the videos online. I deleted them from my devices, she said. Her voice was thick with disgust. They were filthy, but she lived in fear because she didn't know if Diddy still had those damaging files. Cassie also told how he threatened her family and said he would hurt them if she spoke out. Did you get into fights? Yes, it would lead to pulling. What else did he do? He hit me in the head when I was down. Too often. I would get black eyes, and the horror didn't stop there. For 10 long years, Cassie was a constant presence of violence. He would hit me over the head, drag me, and kick me. Cassie's voice shook as she described a nightmare of violence, an unending storm of violence that broke her. She talked about being severely beaten. Her head was smashed, her body was dragged across floors, kicked, stomped, thrown against walls, shoved downstairs, and choked until the world went black. Each blow did more than hurt her body. It left scars on her soul that would never heal. But one memory stood out more than the others. Cassie said she would always remember her nightmare from 2012 at the Four Seasons Hotel. It started out innocently enough, an after-party for the music industry full of energy and power, but Diddy got angry when Cassie dared to talk to another music executive. His famous red carpet smile turned into a snarl, and he grabbed her arm so hard that scars were left in her ear while he smiled and hissed at the crowd. Picture it. A man who owned every room he walked into dragged her through the hotel hallway like a possession. Her cries were drowned out by the noise of rich and famous people. When hotel security saw Diddy, they walked up and asked, "Is everything okay?" One asked. The mogul gave them a nod and they disappeared, leaving Cassie in his grip by herself. No one asked her if she was okay. The mask was gone from the room above her, and a champagne bottle flew past her head and hit the wall, breaking it. Lamps broke, tables fell over, and the room was destroyed. In his rage, she was locked up for more than 48 hours with threats of harm if she dared to call for help. "I thought I was going to die that night," she whispered. The courtroom leaned forward and hung on every word. The next morning, she took pictures of herself in the dim light of a bathroom mirror. There were cuts on her arms, a split lip, and a red neck from being hit. "I took them because I was afraid no one would believe me," she said, breaking the silence. Then the police video from 2016 was shown to everyone. It was blurry, but it showed Diddy pulling Cassie down a hotel hallway. While her body was limp and her fight was ending, the prosecutor's voice was sharp. "Where is this?" Cassie from the Intercontinental replied, her voice calm now. "That was the night I tried to get away. I reached for the hotel phone, but he ripped it off and took my bag and everything else." Photos she took later, which showed bruises and a torn lip, hit the jury like a shockwave. One woman juror covered her mouth and tried not to gasp, and 2 men turned away from the truth and stared back at the screens in the courtroom. "I took them because I was afraid no one would believe me," Cassie said over and over. Her words were a quiet but unwavering indictment. At that moment, the untouchable king of music looked small, his empire falling apart under the weight of her truth. Cassie didn't just bring her story to court. She brought years of carefully picked out evidence as well. Text messages, emails, photos, and audio recordings were all aimed at Diddy's carefully built empire. He was both sorry for beating her and threatening to destroy her career in the next sentence. One message made it clear how desperate he was. He offered her a staggering $2 million for a clean break, as a bribe to forget about the past and keep her quiet. However, what really shocked everyone were the messages from famous people, including a #1 rapper, a beloved pop star, and a veteran producer, all of whom were horrified by what they had seen. These messages shattered Diddy's public claims that no one had ever seen him do anything wrong, revealing a truth that no one had seen before. The prosecution didn't hold back, reading Diddy's terrifying threats out loud. There were calls for Cassie to recruit other women, and hints that hidden cameras were recording the whole thing. Photos of her injuries, backed up by friends, flashed on the screens, and each bruise was like a silent scream. There were also hospital records under a fake name and flight logs linking Diddy to the notorious freak-off parties, complete with hired escorts. Cassie's voice broke as she talked about looking through a notebook that had a sad list of escorts Diddy used and how he forced her into dates she didn't want. "I felt like an object," she said, her voice breaking and tears streaming down her face. Like something for him to use. In the horror, Cassie stopped and looked off into space. She broke the courtroom's silence when she said she used to love Diddy with all her heart. "He was my everything," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Those freak-offs were the only times I got him to myself. The only times I felt like I had a connection with him." Her words were like a punch to the gut that no one saw coming. What a nightmare it must have been for Cassie. She had clung to love and given up herself for brief moments of warmth from the man she loved. But that love turned out to be her prison. "Diddy," she said, twisted her mind and choked her musical dreams. She cried out, remembering how she had to do drugs and put up with weirdos to avoid his anger. "I was just a young girl thinking he'd help my career." She choked out, her voice raw with pain. The jury stood still, their eyes shining as the weight of her words changed the story of a mogul's life. It wasn't just testimony, it was the end of a myth, and Diddy could only watch as his untouchable crown fell away. At the defendant's table, Diddy sat stiffly with his fingers clenched around a water glass. The swagger he'd strutted in with that morning was gone, wiped out in 30 minutes by Cassie's fiery testimony. He fumbled with his tie and cufflinks, making hasty notes and speaking to his lawyers. But most of the time he was staring at Cassie with a glare that seemed to burn through her. Cassie never met his gaze, as if he were a shadow she didn't want to face. However, when she showed him her collection of text messages, emails, Diddy's apologies for his violence, and threats to destroy her career, he was shocked. He had no idea she had been keeping these secrets from him for years. Messages from his close friends, business partners, and famous people who knew him confirmed they had seen his bad side at private parties. One from Cassie's trusted friend and producer, Dallas Austin, begged for her safety. It, along with photos of her wounds and hospital records under a fake name, painted a picture of a Diddy that no one knew. Cassie went even further, naming Diddy's loyal followers, security drivers, a former chief of staff, and a financial handler, as well as their roles in his web of control. 7 pictures of these people looked up on the prosecutor's screen, and Diddy couldn't hold still. He jumped to his feet and yelled, "This is a lie. She's trying to destroy me." His lawyer yanked him back to his seat, but Diddy kept yelling about being lied to. Police had to help him leave the courtroom, which was a mess. Behind him, his daughters, who were sitting near the defense, ran out in tears because they couldn't handle the horrible details. Diddy's lawyers, led by the sharp-tongued Tenny Guerregos, fought to regain control. They said the 2016 video showed jealousy, not sex trafficking, and they painted Cassie as willingly taking part in Diddy's lavish lifestyle out of greed, like the $20 million civil settlement she'd gotten for him. They criticized her drug use, questioned her memory, and brought up dates that didn't match up. They called a former assistant of Cassie's to testify, but prosecutors showed that the witness got paid by Diddy. Cassie admitted that drugs and sex were big parts of their relationship, but she stuck to her claims of abuse and rape, including a 2018 assault. When asked, "Why didn't you leave?" Gegos asked, "A text from her seemed to match Diddy." She said, "I sent it because I was afraid of what he'd do." When Cassie answered, the room went silent because he said he would take my mother away. Guerrego's answer froze, and the jury looked at each other as the weight of her words hit them. Outside, the internet went crazy. Alex Fine's post praising Cassie as the strongest woman got 2 million shares. Diddy's PR team responded by calling Cassie a liar, but in court, his once Loyal staff started to leave quietly as texts, photos, and recordings started to pile up, leaving Diddy and his lawyers facing a tsunami of evidence. The man who had once ruled an empire now looked like a king who had been dethroned. His legacy was falling apart with every word Cassie spoke. Cassie's testimony went on for more than 4 hours, with breaks because she was pregnant. She cried as she talked about the fakes and the love she once had for Diddy, whom she called Pop Pop, and who called her CC. "I did it to make him happy," she said, broken up with emotion. She was getting close to 40 years old and thought about the trapped, helpless girl she was when she was younger. "I thought I'd never escape," she admitted, "but today I'm done staying silent." The prosecutors hammered home the stark power difference. They put Cassie, a 19-year-old singer, aspirant, up against Diddy, a 37-year-old titan who controlled her career and finances. They showed proof of Diddy's inner circle, bodyguards, and HR chief enablers who helped him tighten his control. "If I didn't answer his call right away, someone would show up," Cassie said, her voice shaking as she looked at pictures of the guards. The prosecution's case was clear. This wasn't just domestic abuse. It was a criminal enterprise with Diddy at its core, using his fame and power to set up a 20-year web of exploitation. As Cassie left the witness stand, her eyes were tired but not scared. Her husband, Alex, was on her side. The naive 19-year-old who had come into Diddy's life was gone. She is now married to Alex and expecting her third child. They live a quiet life together, and he often posts about how much he loves her on Instagram. He once wrote, "She's the best mother." Now that they were in court, he was her rock and never left her side. Cassie in 2025 is not at all like Cassie in 2006. Someone once said that a growing R&B star was like Carrera and Rihanna. Her first record, which was produced by Ryan Leslie, made it into the top 20, but after that, nothing. "I kept waiting," she said in court, "but the Freakoffs held my career hostage." A 10-album deal with Bad Boy Records led to just one release, and Cassie fell out of the public eye. 6 years later, she showed up briefly on red carpets or in a Nicki Minaj song. Outside of court, social media went crazy with hashtags like Cassie Speaks and Diddy Trial. Artists like Kehlani called for the music industry to be held responsible, and rumors spread that other artists like Meek Mill were involved with the fake music. Inside the courtroom, however, Cassie was the center of attention. Alex's eyes never left hers. They were like a bright light cutting through the darkness of her past and guiding her through the storm of memories. Cassie and Diddy's story is a stark warning. Not all relationships that look good are real love. When power is used to control and suffocate someone, it stops being love and becomes oppression. Cassie was brave to come out of hiding and tell the truth, not just for herself, but for thousands of other victims who are still being silenced. And justice doesn't stop easily. As day 2 of the trial came to a close, the man who had walked into the courtroom as music's untouchable king left looking like a defeated general. His security team used to be a wall around him, but they couldn't protect him from the storm in that courtroom. The evidence, the testimony, and the recordings painted a picture that no one could erase. The question now isn't whether Diddy can win this case, but whether his reputation can ever recover from what the world heard today.